Good evening and welcome to this Farm Advisory Service webinar. This is the fourth in our series on the subject of managing people. And tonight we're going to be talking about succession. And we've been joined by Heather Wildman of Saviour Associates. Now, Heather formed Saviour Associates in 2014 to give advice, coaching and mentoring across the agribusiness spectrum, and has become a go-to person when it comes to talking about succession. So we're really pleased to have her. So I'll just, without further ado, pass you over to Heather, and we'll take it from there. Okay, Heather.
Hi, thank you, Alistair, and thank you very much for inviting me to join you and the team this evening. It's a new world, this webinar, so I must admit I miss being able to see people in person, being able to gauge the responses, look at the body language and everything. So I'm just going to have to imagine what people are thinking and saying. So please do join in with the questions and chat. I will be asking you to partake in a little bit of feedback as well at the end. I'm a big believer in people writing something down that they're going to actually action after this. So if you do have some pen and paper, because hopefully you'll be all scribbling, making lots of notes, I will ask you if there's one or two or three things you're actually going to do from this webinar. And it might be just go and have a lie down or a glass of wine, but ideally it'll be something to do with succession. So thank you very much, Alistair. And now then, I'm just going to try and get my presentation working. So succession, yes, that big scary thing, one day son, daughter, darling, this will all be yours. Do we know what that means? Will it be something that'll be brilliant, wonderful, it's what we've always wanted, it's going to make us very happy and fulfilled, and we're going to love what we're doing? Or actually, is it going to be a ball and chain and a noose around our neck, and it's going to be something that's that we never even dared expect it could be, and it's not exactly what we wanted it to be either? And for me, you know, we spend so much time at work, and I am absolutely privileged. I've been, as Alistair said, I've been doing succession now since 2016, and I kind of fell in it accidentally. I'm a farmer's daughter, brought up in farming families and everything, and my whole business is about people, influencing and motivating positive change. And I guess one person did say, Heather, you do soft skills with a sledgehammer. So I'm not sure, I presume that's a compliment, but yeah, I don't tend to pussyfoot around, and if there's difficult questions to be asked, I do believe if you put it in the right time, the right tone and the right language, it's amazing what you can draw out of people and everything as well. And I love this saying from Muhammad Ali, when you truly believe in what you're doing, it shows. Winners in life are those that are excited about where they're going and what they're doing. And you can absolutely, someone is just living the dream, they bounce out of bed every day, they know what they're doing, they know where they're going, they own it, they've got the purpose, they've got the fulfillment, they've got the sense of satisfaction. And my word, you can really tell when people haven't got that as well. And I want you to think about yourselves in your own situation. You know, how do you feel? Do you love what you're doing? Do you have a spring in your step? And, you know, would you work for you? Are you a good role model as well? Depending where you are in the succession line, you know, are you in the senior part of your career and looking at maybe, you know, transition the business onto someone else? Or are you maybe stepping into your career just at the beginning, early steps, and you're sort of thinking, well, hang on, when do I get a say? When do I get to hold the reins? And I think when we know what our direction is and everything, it is a lot easier, and it does give us a lot more confidence going forward. And when I start with any business going into it, whether it be an individual that I'm looking to do some coaching or mentoring with, whether it be, you know, a small rural family business, or whether it be a big corporate organization, I will always start with these three simple questions. And this is what I want to ask, you know, think about this for yourself. What is your vision? And again, regardless of where you are in the family or anything else, this is your life. We are only here once. It's a very short time for some. For some, it's maybe too long. But, we only have one life. We spend an awful lot of time in work. What do we want to get out of our life? What do we want to achieve? Where do we want to be? What's our dreams? What's our ambitions? And have that written down. And I'm a big believer that in goals and dreams that aren't written down are just a fantasy. And there's evidence out there that if you write down what you want to achieve, you are 80% more likely to achieve it and for it to come true. Now that's pretty amazing odds. So I want you to really think hard. Have you got the goals? Have you got dreams? If you haven't, why not? What's deferring you? What's holding you back? And just, even if it's just short steps to get you going. Some people can think a lot further ahead. Oh, I'm quite comfortable thinking 10, 15, 20 years ahead, but I'm actually struggling with the today, the tomorrow, this next few years. Whereas other people think, oh, okay, I can see the first, few years, but after that, I'm struggling. But it's always good to, whatever you start with, have a good goal, a vision, dream, and ambition. And then how do you communicate it? And, for my world in farming, in rural life, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And people are not psychic. So if you've got some dreams and goals, and I'm a great believer, folk aren't mind readers. So if you want to retire, you want someone to take over your business, you want to have a bit more time off to go and do hobbies, you want to maybe buy a bungalow or something, you need to verbalize it. Or if you're young and you're coming into a business and you see yourself developing a diversification, you want to take over the business, but you want to run it differently. How are you going to verbalize that? So write it down, say the words out loud, and who do you need on board? Because I personally have never achieved anything myself. And when you think about the best opportunities, whether it be jobs, whether it be land, whether it be stock, whether it be, whatever it is, very rarely are they advertised. Some of the best opportunities, it's word of mouth, it's a tap on the shoulder. So if you have got some dreams or ambitions, who do you need to share that with? And in what form do they need to know? And who do you need on board to achieve it? So it might be a land agent, it might be the bank manager, it might be your wife, your husband, your children, your daughters, whoever it is. Get the best team of people around you, and then believe me, with the right people, with the right message and the right vision, you will start to see these impacts and these visions come true. But it's not always straightforward, and like with any great plan, things don't always go well. And I've been really lucky with my career. I work in staff management, I work in discussion groups, I do resilience programs, I do leadership programs. And it was through some of the leadership programs I was running with the young farmers that succession started to come around more and more as a real hurdle. Folk were going back and having the meeting, and some people were dreading having the conversation because someone says, well, who should start the conversation? If we're the young people coming in, do we wait till mum, dad, granny, grandpa asks us, because are we rude? Are we being a bit bullish? Are we being insensitive if we push the subject? Or if we're the senior generation, do we wait for the children to start showing? Because the last thing we want to do is push them, bully them into taking on the farm, because a number of people say it's not an enviable job, it's not easy. We want them to go off, spread the wings and come back. So who does start the conversation, then how does the conversation go? And I know in one of the young farmers ones, some of the young farmers, when they went home after one of the workshops, that they came back to the meeting a month later and they said, oh my God, I couldn't believe how well the conversation went. Mum and dad were really relieved. We sat down, we got the siblings there, and it went really, really well. And then, in nearly every one of the workshops, there was someone said, well, that wasn't the case for me. And there was one young chap, when he brought it up, his dad did not speak to him for 2 weeks, which is a pretty strong response. And that's where it really got me starting to think, well, hang on, there's a lot more to this succession. And I was starting to, when I was in my staff meetings and things, it was coming up more and more and more. So that's when I went to Australia. and I went to Australia and met a whole heap of different people that looked at succession from many different angles. And I guess these are the tips that I'm going to share with you tonight in what I found. And I tend to do things pretty straightforward, and I try and keep things simple, which some of you might say, Heather, you've not met my family. Nothing's simple in my family, but if we can take the emotion out of it and take a step back, and that's where I think us facilitators come at it from a very privileged aspect, in that we can we can see things from many people's angles, whereas sometimes when we're so embroidered in a fallout in health issues, maybe financial pressures, we start to lose a little bit of perspective as well. So I'm going to run through now some of the tips and traits that I use, and how I would approach succession within the families, and hopefully that'll mean less of you guys get caught with your breeks on the fence. So I hate to say it, but there's no simple answer to this. We ain't getting out of this life alive. Death is going to happen to all of us at some point. We are all going to die. So I've probably just lost a few followers there. But, some of us, we've still got a blooming long time of living ahead of us as well. And succession is going to happen in everybody's business, whether it's our own personal business, whether in a corporate business or whatever. And it's down to the 6Ds, either death, will change a transition in a business, disabilities, disaster, disease, divorce, disagreements, or debt. So there was one client I was working with in Cornwall, and he told me, he says, I had this farmer, and he was not going to have any daughter-in-laws. There was going to be no divorce, splitting up this business and losing this farm. So he forbade his sons to get married. He thought, that's it, sorted. These two boys are now in their 80s. Not married, no children, so guess what? The farm's still going to be to transition. So that was a bit of an extreme message. So for me going forward, each and every one of you that are out there completely different. And what I must say is I'm not a lawyer, an accountant, a solicitor, or anything. And one thing I do find is if you are saying you want to take some advice on succession and someone immediately says, oh, no problem, Jim, Mary, Fred, Francis, this is what you need to do, run for the hills. There is no textbook to sort out succession. Each and every one of you are completely different. Your needs, your desires, your abilities, your skill sets, your circumstances are all different, and that of your families. And I think that's what we really need to recognise, is that what is right for your mum and dad, what is right for your neighbour, what is right for your friends could be completely different to you. The other thing I picked up from my travels and everything is you really do need to obtain good professional legal and accounting advice. And the consistent message we've had everywhere is that farmers are allergic to paying professional fees. How much? We can't afford that. Oh no, it's too dear. We'll either just leave it, or we'll find someone cheaper, or we'll do it ourselves. Trust me, when it comes to succession, saving a few pounds today could cost you tens of thousands of pounds down the line. And I have been blown away, and I feel a bit sort of cheeky saying this because I'm just, brand new and into it. I've only been doing this for a few years, but it really does amaze me the difference in quality of advice and professionals out there. And a really good solicitor, lawyer, accountant that works for one person just might not connect and fit with the other. So I think it's about finding the right professional team that you can work with. And they don't have to be the biggest, and they don't have to be the most expensive. But I would definitely say they need to be able to specialise in your field, depending what you are, whether you're crofting, whether you're contracting, whether you've got multiple businesses, diversification. It is all very specialised now, particularly with taxation as well. So build up the best professional legal team you can get and really network that. The other thing is, as difficult as this may be, communicate openly with your family members and professionals. They are not mind readers. So if you've always gone to your accountant and said, look, because, as all farmers do, they want to have it in the headstones, I went to the grave and paid no tax. Well, that's great, but sometimes we're going to have to at some point So, if you're used to wanting something as cheap and as quick as possible from your professionals, and you just say, I want my succession sorted, they'll probably just do it as a very straightforward, well, as tax planning, this is the right way to do it. But actually, is that what's right for your family? So this is where you really need to think how you want it to look, what you want people to have, and sit down with your family as well. And the best time is now. It is never too late. And it's never too early. It can be too late, but it's never too early. So the sooner you start the conversations with, the better. And yes, I know sometimes it can be sticky, it can be awkward, it can be a bit clunky, but again, come back to that time, tone, and language. And when there's no financial pressure, there's no health issues, and we haven't fallen out, you can sit, you can have a bit of banter, a bit of fun, and sort of say, well, what do you fancy? What would you see? How would you imagine life? What would you like to do? And get it on a piece of paper, write it down, and have a bit of fun. And then when you've got all this time, you can go to the professionals, because some succession planning is fairly straightforward and can be done fairly quickly, but others, it actually takes quite a long time. So the sooner you start, we can then put things in place to manage tax, insurances, maybe diversify, develop, pay off a bit of debt, whatever, so that then the other family members are all feeling involved. The other thing as well is really, really key, is recognizing the differences in the generations, being respectful. Respect mum, dad, granny, grandpa, aunties and uncles. How did you get the farm? What were your circumstances? How did you feel? And a lot of farmers, when I speak to them, they don't want to retire really, but they're not physically fit and able to do all of the work. And all they want is to be involved and to have a purpose. So whether it be, going and feeding the heifers or the sheep or the gopher's one of the most important jobs, because you don't realise how much the gopher did until they're not there, and they have all the power, or even if mum and dad, they don't want to do the day-to-day work, make them financial director, or I think titles are quite important as well. And then again, for the younger family members, don't disrespect them just because they're young and enthusiastic, but then how are you behaving? Are you behaving like someone that does deserve to be brought into the family business as well? So where are you at? And the difficult with family succession is if you've got a family member that is holding all the checkbook, all the reins and everything, and they refuse to talk to you, they refuse to have the discussion, they refuse to hand anything over, and you have no idea where you are, we cannot make them tell us. We cannot make somebody say or share anything that they don't want to, and it is absolutely within their right not to tell you if they choose not to. It's unfair, but if they choose to be that way, they can be. But what you do have is options over how you behave with this. Do you just sit back, trust, and take it? Or actually, are you going to take a bit of charge over your own destiny? So even regardless if you don't know what granny, grandpa, mum and dad, brothers, sisters want to do, you still have choices. And I think that's really important to remember. You can take charge of your own destiny. And are you really entitled to inherit? I'm not always sure someone being given something debt-free is really healthy, which some young people in the audience might be going, no, why should somebody get something debt-free? And, why should you inherit it? In a lot of countries, you have to buy in and you have to earn it and you have to, pay your way to get the business. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. So this is you, wherever you are in your business, where are you at? What do you actually want? Do you want to work to the day you die? You want to live in the farmhouse because I was born in here and I'm going to come out of here in a box? Or I actually want to retire, I want to move away, I want to live in the town, I want a smaller place, I want some independence, I want to take over the business, but I want to work 9 to 5. Really think about what it is you want. What will it look like? Because there's nothing worse when we do have a family meeting and we sort of say, get everyone around the table and we say, right guys, what do you fancy? What are you thinking? Oh, I don't know, just whatever, it's not my place to say. That is really frustrating. So I always think, what do you want? Have it in mind. And then are you ready to make the change? And this is the difficult thing, because to really push succession through often does not make you the most popular person in the party. And you will have to be consistent. You will have to push. You will have to chase things up. You will have to have some difficult conversations, and have a time frame in mind, and then take professional advice. And with the professions, again, it blows my mind. There's some professions you can work with, god, they're so straightforward. Yeah, dum dum dum, it's done. Other ones, oh well, this is complicated, we can't do this because, oh well, we'll need to read through this and we need to do this. Some people just really complicate things as well. So I would say have a time frame in mind and chase up and put deadlines in place, because a lot of lawyers, accountants and everything, they're working to a long list of people, and it's the ones that shout the loudest that get through. So do not assume that everyone has your best interest at heart, and do not assume that they will come back to you. You will have to really take ownership and push it forward. Do you have an exit plan or a plan B? And do you know when you want to retire? And I think that's quite important as well. The world is changing. It used to be an average farmer could make money. Nowadays, a really, really good farmer can struggle to make a profit because of the extreme volatility and because of so many things that's out of our hands. So I always think, have a plan B. And when I sit with families and I sort of say, oh, we're stuck, we have to do it this way. And I think, well, why? Have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about doing that? And sometimes that's all it takes to give people that, oh, actually, oh, we've got some options. So suddenly the pressure is released. For other people, once we start talking about maybe some other scenarios, it's like, well, do you need to do the dairy if it's going to mean a bigger investment? Nobody's really wanting to milk, getting the staffs harder. Could you do contract heifer rearing? Could you rent the land out and maybe get a job? Could you do whatever? And sometimes when we do these scenarios, and we get people talking openly and looking at solutions, it's amazing. Sometimes folks say, actually, why are we dairying or doing whatever? Let's move that out the way and do something else. And it's a real relief, because sometimes we're always doing what we've already done because we've already done it, and we're not brave enough to put our hand up and say, I'd rather do something different. Have you done your numbers? For me, with any succession planning, whatever stage you are at, you must know your numbers. There's a lot of people living with their head in the clouds, thinking we've got an amazing business, there's endless supplies of cash, and actually we have no idea what the debt, the borrowing, and the reserves are within the business. So with any of it, I always say, how's the business doing? What is the debt? What's the borrowing? What's the savings? What assets have you got? What's the diversifications? If you've got a multi-enterprise business, how is each enterprise doing? Is one, and do a bit of a benchmark. Don't just gauge it on 1 year. Maybe go back, ideally maybe 5 years, and sort of say, right, well, how is this business doing? Then if we go forward and we bring another family member in, are we going to be able to afford them? And how much can we afford to pay them? Because just because a business maybe can only afford to pay £8,000, and that's fine when we're new and coming into the family and we can live on some pocket money, but maybe then when we're married and we've got children and we need to put them through school, we need to put them through college, suddenly we may be looking at, we need a personal drawing of 25,000. But at least if you know the business has only got whatever reserves in it, you can say, right, well, we'll bring that extra money in from outside. I'm going to get another job, or we'll diversify, whatever. So it's been really, really honest. And I don't think, one's right and one's wrong. Some people need an awful lot of drawings to survive to the standard of life they want, because of how they want their home to look, their hobbies, their dress, their cars, their holidays, whereas other people can live very, very frugally. They're just very happy with what they've got. And I think it's about being honest about that. So do you know what your spouse is looking for? And again, it does surprise me even sometimes how many couples haven't possibly talked about this, and then the children as well, and discuss it openly with all of the family. So yeah, coming back to when to start, when will you retire? And I do like a reverse budget with a lot of my clients, and I put like a ruler and 0 to 88. So we're born day one, and on average, people are living to about 88. And then I put 4 quarters in, so 0 to 25, 25, 50, 50 to 75, and then 75 onwards. And then I get them to put a line on the ruler where their age is. So where are you? What age are you today? And then think about what age you want to retire. And some people just want to keep working forever, and some people want to retire quite quickly. So I'm 49, that's giving it away. And I think I'm going to retire at 70. So if I'm on average going to live to 88, might have to cut the wine down, but I'm here for a good time, not a long time. And so I'm going to live for 18 years. How much money a year are you going to need to live on? Now, and this can really get some people sort of think, oh God, Heather, I've never thought of that. I don't know. And what about, what's included in that? I think don't complicate it, but just think you are not on the farm, you're independent. So there's no tires, there's no fuel, there's no insurance, you're paying your own council tax. Some people say, what's that? The dog food, you're all living independently. How much will you need a year? And I had one guy in Sky that said, oh, Heather, I'd struggle to spend 6,000. And I thought, oh my God, that's frugal. And then, another person, 20, 25, 60, it's like an auctioneer, 80, 100. I thought, well, I know which one I'd rather retire with. 100,000 a year or 6, but money doesn't make you happy, I'm told. But it's thinking about that. So if I'm going to live 18 years, and I reckon I'm going to need 50,000 a year, I think, because hopefully by then we'll be able to have holidays and different things. And I don't think food's going to get any cheaper, and I don't think heating and energy and things is going to get much cheaper. So I'm going to need about 900,000. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because so many families, they have put every spare bit of cash they have into the business to keep the business going. We wouldn't be where we are if we didn't invest everything into the business. But then suddenly when they come to retire, they have got nothing in their own name. Everything is in the business. So start thinking, when you want to retire, what will you need? And is there a point where you maybe need to start investing out with the farm rather than always in the farm? And I've had young farmers say to me, what should I do, Heather? Should I invest in ISAs and pensions, or should I put some land and put some sheep on it? And I said, well, I'm not a financial advisor, but I would look at return on investment. So when you're making business decisions, what investment, what growth is going to get you closer to your end goal? And when we're talking again with our families about this, mum and dad, when you retire, will you have financial independence, or will the business need to keep you? I think that's quite important. What will retirement look like? Do you still want to be involved in the business? And can we work together? Let's be honest. And there was a lovely farmer at one meeting that we had in Fife that said, Heather, he says, I'm lost. He says, I'm 75. My son's come into the business. I'm absolutely delighted, but I can't get on with him. And I know I'm going to nip, nip, nip. And I know that's not fair. So I'm going to have to start a new life, a new hobby. And it was quite a change, but I thought, well done you for recognizing that. Sometimes we're reluctant to succeed our businesses because maybe we don't believe the next generation has the skills or the ability. So be honest about that. What skills do you need to see the next generation having for you to have the confidence in them? And have they got enough, or do they need to go away? And I really, really encourage more young people to go away, work abroad, work in other industries, other enterprises, learn new skills, build the confidence, and even better if you've earned some income, and then you can buy your way into the business. Again, how viable is the business? And again, I've seen some very small rural family businesses that has been incredibly diverse, so that 3 or 4 or 5 family members can all have a piece of home but be independent. And then I've seen some really, really big businesses that cannot make it work. So for me, it's not about being bigger, it's being better. It's just about, is there enough money in the pot? Is the pot big enough to allow everyone to get what they want out of it? And it is incredibly how some businesses can be very creative in that one. Have we off-farm dependence? Do we actually know how many people are drawing on the business. You know, if Granny and Grandpa are still in, have they got siblings? You know, how complicated is it? And that's why some difficult conversations need to come in, or you might think, do you know what, I'm actually better going away and making my own legacy and making my own way. What professional support do you need? And don't be afraid to ask for help. Have a time frame and get it written down. Again, this is back to these goals at 80% more likely. And then, God forbid, if anything does happen, your best wishes, your intentions, your thoughts are written down somewhere, because we are not mind readers. So, where to start if we're going to have the family meeting? And I know there's been a little bit of this done already in the programme, but for me, have a neutral venue. Now, if we're starting sooner and we're early steps and the family's all getting on, I'm quite happy for it to be around the kitchen table. But sometimes we do need to have it away, because A, the phone never stops. Mum's always up and down at the kitchen, at the cooker, at the kettle, or someone's knocking on the door, or we behave maybe differently when we're in a different venue to home. So you know your family, but don't be afraid of asking the accountants to use a meeting room, the bank, you know, or a village hall or whatever. I always say have an agenda. Keep it brief, keep it straight to the point, and don't get sidetracked. Telephones off. And you know, if you're only in for half an hour, keep it going. Have a common goal. What are we here to achieve in this meeting? Are we all on board? I would also put some ground rules in there that we won't interrupt, we'll let people speak, and that if things get heated, we'll have a cooling period and come back. Appoint a facilitator chair. Some families will never have a grown-up, sensible, productive meeting without an independent person there. And that could be someone like myself, but it could even be an outside family member. I've seen it be, you know, an accountant, the bank manager, a godfather, or whatever. You know, but what I find with families is they say, Heather, you got us to a point we would never have got to before. We all sat and listened, and you asked the questions that we've been wanting to ask, but we're afraid to ask. The other things, by having an independent person in there, make sure everything is minuted, because it is amazing what people forget. And you know, you think, you know, there may be only 4 of you been at that meeting, but there might be 6 different interpretations of what was covered and what was actually said in that meeting as well. So I think that's quite important. Keep it minuted, because that might be massive evidence if there isn't a succession plan, and God forbid someone dies suddenly, that if it is in the minutes that dad or mum or auntie or sister wanted to do this, this and this, you've got some records of it as well. Really important to make these meetings, because I've got some families that say, oh, you know, it's great, we talk about everything, we're really, really open. And then the kids will say, yeah, we talk about it, mum and dad, but we never get round to doing anything. So for me, make sure there's action plans, make sure there's initials, who is going to carry out the action, and make sure there is a date that they are going to be completed by, and then set that next meeting. And I've got some families that I work with, all they need is one meeting to get us up and running. And I've got other families that said, you know what, Heather, we're going to need you to come back, because we know you're a cost, but it means we'll get it done and that we'll stick to the date, because often when it's just within house, you know, something crops up and it's easy to put off. So make sure you've got those dates and that you're followed by it. Are we hopefully keeping everybody all in line? I'm not speaking too quickly. So I'm hoping you will all have started now thinking a little bit about, what do you want to achieve? Where do you want to be? What do you want to have? And, you know, think about you, the me personally. How do you want to feel? How do you want to be spending your time? Your career, what do you want to achieve? Your legacy, you know, how do you want to work? What do you want to be earning? What do you like doing? What do you not like doing? You know, your family, your home time. I'm noticing more and more we are hearing about work-life balance. It used to be folk were happy working 24/7, 7 days a week, you know, tired, callous and everything. Whereas now we'd maybe rather have a little less, but really enjoy what we're doing. And we want to be there for the kids' bath times. We want to be there to take them to the hobbies, the swimming, you know, the football, the rugby. We want to go to the pals. I know this was all in the pre-COVID, whoever thought would be where we are, but hopefully we'll get all this back. So what is really important to you? And some people, you know, they're far happier at work. Other people, you know, we need that time with families and everything as well. So I just wonder, is there any questions, Alistair, with where we are there that you want to bring in at this point?
Well, we've got one at the moment. So how much money, if you're a young farmer, how much money would you consider putting aside for professional advice for a succession plan? Has been asked here.
As a young farmer, you're in a hugely privileged position in that a lot of people would give you a lot of free advice because they'd hope that you would come back and use them going forward. And most professionals will give one meeting free. So what I always say to anyone, regardless of your age, young, medium, old, mature farmer, is if you've got that vision and goal, don't waste it. Set up an appointment with maybe 3 accountants, 3 consultants, and tell them what you want, what you're thinking, what you want to achieve from the meeting. Set up the meeting and go to a couple of different accountants, a couple of different lawyers, and see who works for you. You're going to get 3 lots of free advice, and then you'll decide who you can work with, who talks your language, who you feel comfortable with. And then say to them, well, what do you think is a sensible proposition going forward? Now, for me, if you want to employ me for a day, it's £600. And I think a lot of professionals, some charge by the hour, and you can't say to sort your succession out or to coach you is going to be a set package, because some people it's done and dusted on a phone call and it's 10, 15 minutes, an hour maybe. Other people it needs a lot more support. So it really depends, and that's where it's clear, this bit here, what are your goals? So your goals, your vision, your dreams, where do you want to get to? And then the people that you go to for advice can be on the foot ready. They can be researched, and you'll have some that'll be coy and not give you anything till you charge them, and you think, right, well, I don't really want, and you'll pick and choose from that. But it really varies depending on the level you need in. But there's a lot of free advice out there, and with your FAS as well, there's a lot of people registered on there, so it doesn't always need to cost money to get the best advice. But be prepared to invest when you know where you are for the right advice. So it's a bit of a political answer, that one, I guess, but it depends really what you want to get out of it.
No, I think that covers it well. That's great. And we've also got another one maybe just put in just now. How do you deal with succession when the members of the younger generation can't agree on what they want going forward?
I think sometimes, therefore, then the senior generation has to step in and say what you think it's going to look like, and it's as fair and equal. It can be different, and I've got some families that it will always go to the oldest child. It must go to the boy. It must go to the girl. It must be equal. We've got 3 children. You're all equally. It must be equal, and that can be really hard if only one of those children wants to farm and the other 2 don't, but they want a share of it. And you think, right, so there's ways around that. So sometimes you need to sit the children down and say, right, what are we going to do? What do you want? And if there's a discrepancy and they can't work, maybe be honest. If 3 of them are all on the farm and they don't get on, why make them? Then look at a proposition that maybe 2 leave or 2 work together that can, or do we need to work together for 5 years to be able to buy another business that then we can separate? But sometimes then if they don't agree, mum and dad need to say, do you know what? We are doing what's right for us. We are going to make enough independence. We're going to give you this, this, and this, and separate it. And then as long as they know it's up to them, and they can either walk away and say, we're not happy with it, or negotiate or come to the table, or you get a facilitator to try and find a way around. What is the underlying nub that we're not getting on? What is holding us back from coming to an agreement? I'm not sure if that answers those questions.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's all the questions for just now.
Okay, so another reason to not bury your head with succession. How well do you know your business? And if we've got family members that won't talk, or we've got young ones that are not prepared to lift their heads up and take on board, this is one that I think is just good governance. You know, take the family out of it. This is good business governance, whether you're a big business, a small business, or an independent sole trader like myself. Do you know your business structure, and is your business structure fit for purpose for your current business? Because it's surprising how many agreements or business structures were set up maybe years and years ago when the business looked like one thing, but now it's grown and multiplied. Is it in the right one? If you're a sole trader, how vulnerable is your family, your partner, your children, if God forbid you don't come home? If everything is in one person's name, your tenancy, your single farm payment entitlements, your bank account and everything, if that individual does not come home, pardon me, how vulnerable is the rest of your business? Because generally it'll be closed. It'll be frozen by the bank. Same with partnership agreements. Have you got a partnership agreement? Is it signed? Who's in the partnership and what are they a partner of? And if you've got elderly partners in there, what happens if there's only two of you in the partnership and one person dies? Again, it can be frozen by the bank. And I've got a number of young farmers that say, oh, are you in partnership? And they put their hands up and I say, oh, that's great. What are you a partner of? And they go, oh, I don't know. Are you a partner of the good stuff, you know, the fixed house, the land, the property and everything? Or you're a partner of the movable, which tends to be the stock, the machinery, feed, fertilizer, and generally the debt. And, you know, and is the business, is the land in the partnership or is it out of the partnership and is it owned separately? And, you know, that can be, that had one guy and he says, oh, I don't know. So he went home and he asked his dad, and his dad, you know, this woman said, what are your partner of? And he says, I don't know. And dad said, oh, well, actually, I don't know. I'll ask the accountant. And the accountant said, Fred, he's not a partner because you never came back to me. So it never got done. So please check these. Trusts are becoming very popular again, very tax efficient, and also a good way if you've got a family member that is physically or mentally maybe not going to be able to manage their own affairs. It can be a good way to look after them, and limited companies as well. And some businesses, there'll be a multiple of all of those. Crofts, I'm certainly no specialist in crofts, and I'm learning that they are really niche and quite complicated. You know, so sometimes you might think you're going to inherit the croft, the tenancy, but who gets the life interest? Who gets the land ownership agreements? You know, are there any other binding agreements in there as well with the common grazing shareholders, the community rules, the sheep stock club? Is it incorporated, non-incorporated? Also the land ownership, who owns it? That's quite a good one. Prenups, prosnups, you know, these used to be, you know, quite, folk were a bit sceptical about them, but, you know, they possibly do have a place. But if you're going to have a prenup put in place with your children, make sure it's done, you know, in the early days when they're courting or whatever, not the week before the wedding, because that is really, really unfair. Another thing to be looking at is wills. Hands up, everyone in the audience, if you've got an up-to-date will that is signed, that is registered and is current, and your executors and trustees are still fit for purpose and somebody knows where that is. If you haven't, get it done, please. Powers of attorney are as important, if not more so, than your wills, and powers of attorney are not just for the elderly. You know, anyone who's in the business should have a power of attorney, and there's two sides of that. One's to look after your health side and one's to look after your business. So God forbid you are incapacitated and you can't make it home because you're away skiing and there's been a cloud burst and you can't get home and you've got to get your IACs in and it's the final day of a grant application or whatever. Who can make that authority for you? And they need to be registered as well. And really think if you've got the right executors and trustees that can run your business the way you'd want, and maybe have a letter of wishes with that as well. The other thing is, if you have got family members who are senior, you know, trying to get a power of attorney in place and registered while they are still able to sign it and able to aware of it makes managing their, their estates so much simpler. Or even worst case scenario, if you can be a signature, but take advice on that. What are the mortgages? What are the loans? What are the terms? When are they up? Who are they with? Where are they all? And this is like a how-to manual, how to run my business if, God forbid, someone isn't here. Farming is one of the most dangerous occupations out there. Where's the tax records? Where's all the paperwork? Have we been making money? Have we not been making money? Do we pay tax? Where's all our bank statements? What is the current performance? Are we doing well? Are we running 100 miles an hour? Everything's going at top pace. We can't really expand or improve. Or actually, we've got a great deal of opportunity here. Bank account information, in the audience, how many of you, does one person in your business do all of the banking? Passwords, where are the passwords? And on all my clients, it's just beside the computer, Heather, just there, which maybe isn't the most secure, but I actually don't mind it. Other people, it's in the top drawer with the little book that says passwords. But if it's all in your head, that is so dangerous. And for me, I know there's so many passwords now, even your phone, and I hear people say, oh God, Heather, managing so much of these days, we've gone through the death, gone through the shock, we're grieving. But trying to get the phone and the water and the electric sorted, it's like trying to crack some great code. So having that information is really important. What savings have we got on and off farm? Where are they? Whose names are they in? Have we got any debts and liabilities? And what are our list of suppliers? Who's the insurance? Who's the bank manager? Having that list, I can't tell you how many times now people have phoned me up and said, oh my God, Heather, I didn't know we had this until I looked in and Mum had been at one of your meetings and everything was there. I thought we were insured with the NFU. I had to go and pick Dad up and we had to get the car insurance changed and I didn't know she'd changed it. So really, really important. If nothing else from this meeting, a how-to manual is really important. And this can be quite daunting. It can be quite stressful. So for me, it's, who have you got around you? And if you want to achieve great things, walk with those that are doing it. Don't, are you surrounding yourself by drains that drag you down? You can't do it. You won't do it. Always moaning, always negative, or are you around people who are radiators, who lift you up, bring out the best in you, really help and support you? And this could be your network, this could be your family, but this could be, about folk that influence and motivate you, and also about your legal team. Have you got people who, when you are struggling, will say, what about this? Have you thought about this? Don't worry, I'll do this for you. You need to bring in such and such. So really build up a strong network of people who will bring out the best in you. But, it's no easy success. And, a lot of folk look at, oh, it's all right for them. It's all right for them. And it's like seeing an iceberg, they don't see all the stress, the hard work, the perseverance, the sacrifice, the learning, the studying that successful businesses have done. And I can't repeat hardly enough, it's love what you are doing. If you are not loving what you're doing and enjoying it, why are you doing it? Something needs to change. So, really, really think about that one. Have we any more questions, Alistair?
I've got a question here. Young people generally inherit a farm when they're too old to have an innovative and a business approach. Should we be transferring ownership earlier, or should there be an emphasis more on shared farming type arrangements?
Yeah, I think that's valid. My ambition is that everyone should have their succession plan in place by the age of 50. I think, if you're wanting to invest and you're going to need to borrow a load of money, a bank is not as keen to lend that to someone that's in their 60s. And in Chile, when I was on my Nuffield scholarship, there you handed over the business at 35, you got the business and you had it for 20 years. And that was just the rules. So you went to college, you went to university, you had a career, you built up some equity, you came into the business at 35 and you did with that business what you wanted to do. And you knew you had a 20-year lifespan to do whatever it was, and then it succeeded. And I think, it's funny when I talk to tenant farmers, they say, oh, God, it's all right for these owner occupiers because they've got, they've inherited the business, they've got some standing, and they've also got some land and assets to borrow against. And then I go to owner occupiers and they say, God, I'm really envious of a tenant farmer because they know the timescale they've got and then they can transition. And I think it's all perspective. But I think if you've got family members that don't want to come into the business, but you want to give that option open to them, I think share farming is a fantastic thing. And sometimes we can work so much better with someone else's parents or children than we can with our own. We seem to take it on board, maybe be a bit more tolerant, a bit more patient. So I think share farming is definitely a great way to go forward, and not to be afraid. I think some kids just go home and go out, go on your own, be ambitious, learn from someone else and bring those skills in. And I think if we can have a more open-minded mindset in our agricultural and family businesses, and be prepared and be comfortable to let someone change it, because that's often the other thing is we maybe think we're really open about it, and then as we get older we start controlling and we start getting fearful about what we're going to lose. And I always think you've had your fun, you make the most of that 20, 30, 40, 50-year career, and then let someone else do with it. Let them make mistakes, and it's their cost, and it's that thing of being able to let go. So I really do believe people should, but then it's up to the young ones. You don't just have to wait until you're giving it at home. I think there's a lot of young people that are actively starting up farming that have no farming background, and who'd have thought we'd have been able to do that? But I think there is. But you've got to be prepared to move. You've got to be prepared to relocate, and you've got to be prepared to work hard and to network. Don't just assume these opportunities are going to drop on your door. And what is your reputation? It's all well and good, suddenly we mature, but if your social, your Facebook page, your Instagrams, what is your reputation? How are you talked about out with? Because believe you me, bank managers, lawyers, land agents, accountants, auctioneers, these conversations, again, it's coming back to vision, communication, that collaboration. If a farmer is sort of saying, look, I haven't got any children coming on, I've got a great opportunity here, would you be recommended to be put forward to that? And if someone asked for a reference about you, what would people say about you? And I think that's quite key. We really need to think about that if we want to get going. Are we portraying the right image we want to be about our business?
That's a really good point. And we've got another question here. What do you recommend when the parents are tired of working but won't stop working and won't come to a decision about succession, burying their heads in the sand and continue out working to avoid the subject? So I'm sure that's something you maybe come across quite often.
COVID sorted a bit of that out, hasn't it? Oh, sorry. I think it's so sad, and because for some people the prospect of not working and change is so terrifying. And I can think of half a dozen farmers that are actively putting themselves in danger every day, working with cattle, doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And I says, are you trying to get killed? And they said, well, what if it did happen, Heather? And I'm like, wow. So rather than face that decision of sitting and talking to your family, you're hoping you will die in action so that then you don't have to make that decision. And that is really, really hard. And I think, right back to the beginning, you can't make people do what they don't want to do. But I suppose all you can do is lead a horse to water. So get neighbours to talk to them, show them positive actions. So take them to some different places where they could live, and show them how they will still be valued and wanted, but they will be able to do less and how much better they'll feel. And it might be someone else speaking to them rather than yourselves, or, coming up with some ideas. And, we all take it differently. Some people, we need to be shown how that could look and how that could work. And other people, we need to touch it, we need to see it, we need to see the figures and things. So, but it is a really, really difficult one. And I always feel really uncomfortable because some of it it comes across really selfish, and I've seen the kids really worried about their parents, but there's nothing they can do, and they just generally want to die in action rather than make that decision and be retired. Is retirement that bad? you know, how could you make it look attractive for them, I guess.
Right, oh, that's great. And just one more question at the moment, or a point, should the next generation expect to buy into the business? And should the older generation expect to be able to draw out capital on their retirement?
Yeah, I like that idea, but it has to be, and I think that going in with a business mind, looking at buying in, 100,000 or whatever it might be, is shows commitment. It actually gives you some skin in the game. It gives you some, commitment to the business. So I quite like that. And that is then, for you, it blows my mind. Some young farmers in the workshops, how much money some young people have put away. And by, having a flock of sheep, having some heifers, having some hens, whatever, building that enterprise. And I think the sooner you start your children learning about losses, learning about profit, learning about cost, and return on investment, it is great business, even if it's just the kids selling eggs at the end of the lane or baking cakes or whatever it is. Showing that business now is really, really good. Other businesses where we maybe haven't, we all say farmers are cash poor, asset rich, is looking at the shares in the business. So it might be that mum and dad own 80% of the shares and Johnny and Susan own 5 or 10. And then depending how much they work in the business, they may be only getting a pocket money, but an equivalent of up to 25,000. So they may be only getting 8 or 10,000 in their hands, but what the equivalent that they could have been working elsewhere, so say the other 15,000 is made up every year in transition of shares of the business. So that the ownership, if you think of a scale, it starts off the children at the bottom and mum and dad are at the top. And then as they work in the business, mum and dad own less of the business and the children own more. So there's a number of ways of getting into the business as well.
Yeah, so that's great. That's all the questions for just now.
So, to summarise really, work out what the exiting generation wants to do and how can they retire with dignity, with pride, with purpose. Where will they live? What will they do in retirement? Try and identify the needs and aspirations of each family member. Get to understand the financial performance of the business. Speak to your accountant. Manage expectations amongst family members as well. There maybe is less in the pie than what we think, or actually we're just going to sell it because there isn't going to be enough and you guys need to make your own way. Build and maintain, and if necessary, repair relationships between family members. It horrifies me how many families are split and will not speak simply down to pride. Something that was said and we were too proud to say sorry and to build up those repairs. And in that answer to the last question, look at transferring the management and the control over the farm separate to the ownership. So we can build up confidence. So you maybe give them the dairy or the heifers or the arable or the whatever. And then as they're showing credibility, you can give them a bit more. And make sure there's an agreement in place for incoming generation and any non-farming children. So I guess I'd love it if the audience could type in on the chat at least one thing they're going to do from this session tonight, whether it be have a conversation, whether it be the how-to manual, whether it be write your goals, and when are you going to have it done by. It might be leave the business, it might be start a business, buy a house, whatever it is. What are you going to do from this meeting? And if you could all type that into your chat, it might just be have a glass of wine. Hopefully it's a bit more than that. Have we got some stuff coming through, Alistair? Anything in the chat? I can't see anything.
We've got some people saying they're going to be starting conversations. Or
good luck. Time, tone, and language. Is it in the people?
Writing our vision, sorting out wills, encouraging their brother to talk to their children. What else have we got? Make a list of wishes and expectations to ask my husband and children to do the same.
Brilliant. Some people, rather than writing, are better at drawing pictures. How will the future look? You know, have a picture of what today looks like, what's in that picture, and it might be stress, it might be money, it might be whatever. And then, you know, what will it look like in 5 years' time? Will we have children? Will we have pets? Will we have holidays? You know, how much will we be earning? So sometimes pictures are better for people than words. So just think about a few different tools that you can use.
So what else have we got? Got get power of attorney organised and speak to transfer part of the power management. Yeah, that's what we've got just now.
Brill. Yeah, well, I think that's me. I hope it has been useful. I'm sorry if I've sort of rattled loads off at you, but as we've said, the PowerPoint is available to everyone who has attended, if that's of help, and I'm more than happy to pick up the phone if anyone wants a conversation. And you know, with the integrated land management plan, you are entitled to some succession planning up to £800 as well. So, you know, you can get some contributions. So in answer to that question, how much do you put towards it? You know, if you're in part of that plan, you can get a lot of help of funding.
Right, that's great. So we've actually got a couple more questions here just at the end. And one here, how would you value the shares in the business?
Ooh.
Is that one for the accountant, perhaps?
Yeah, yeah. I actually don't know the answer to that one. It depends what's in the business with that, doesn't it? Because if I would imagine if everything is in the business and you value the stock, you get a land agent to come in and you value the stock, the machinery, the assets, the property and everything, and that is the 100%. And then if you've got 20%, you've got 30%. But shares can be deceptive because sometimes with accountants, it's what, you know, you maybe think we've got two partners and we each get 50%. And that's what the split is, 50%. But one partner has maybe been drawing more out of the business over time. And I've seen this happen when we've done succession and splitting partnerships up. There's been quite a shock in store because someone's maybe put the children through college, they've maybe bought property, they've maybe had some weddings, they've maybe gone on holidays. So they've drawn a bit of their, you know, their value of their, they've taken drawings out of the business. Whereas someone else has maybe, well, we've had an ISA come up, we've had an inheritance and we've put a bit more in the business. So it can be surprising. So really, you know, a lot of people just look at the accounts and look at how much tax. Learn to understand your accounts, and if you don't, speak to the accountant and know where you are, because it just because you think you're a 50% majority shareholder or whatever, it can be surprising what that reflects in cash.
Yeah, I think just one last one here. What's the best way to realise or generate cash from capital assets in a farming business?
Oh, that's a big one.
One for the accountant too, but
yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's what do you want? What do you want it for? And what's your time frame, I guess. And because there's nearly always a trip point at some point where we have to pay tax. But if you plan it well in advance with your accountant, you can defer it for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And also don't assume just because you've got a farm that everything is got agricultural relief, you know, and depending if you've diversified your business as well. Some businesses are so well diversified that actually the majority majority of their income, and that completely changes where you stand for agricultural tax release and everything as well. So that's why you must invest in a really good legal team and know where you stand. And then when you do want to release assets and liquidate, you know where you can and how quick you can get that out. And I always think it's good to have a mixed portfolio so that you've got some long-term planning, some medium and some short, so that you've got a bit of backup.
Yeah. Right, that's great. I think that's us. Oh, I've got one more here. When you're the only child of 3 working on the farm, where do you start?
You're the only child of 3 that's working on the farm, so I presume there's maybe some uncles or other people, aunties or whatever in that business, and you're the only child. So I would start by getting everyone sat down, and if they won't sit together, sometimes a lot of farmers and agricultural people, they're not very good with eye contact. So it could just be when you're in the pickup, when you're in the tractor, you know, what are you thinking? Where are you going? I would start with yourself. What do you need? What do you want? What do you know about the business? Get to know as much about the business as possible. And then try and get them to sit down and talk. And if they are not prepared, then I would take legal advice, you know, speak to the accountant, the business partners, and think, what is the partnership agreement? How is it set up? What options have you got that you need to think about?
Right, well, that's great. I think that covers that. So I don't think we've got any more questions. I think we've done pretty well, and so just like to thank Heather for her time, and thank everybody for joining in tonight.